Rich with Experiences is a podcast of amazing people who shares their real-life lived experiences of adversity, strength, and courage in hopes to help someone who can relate. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and follow us on all major streaming platforms: Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and YouTube. Hello and welcome to Rich with Experiences. My name is Michelle. I am your host. I am so excited that you are here with me today. Now, when I thought about what we're going to discuss, I really had no clue what I was going to do today. And as it would have it, life gave me the topic without me even realizing it. So today we're going to talk about boundaries and how, as we are on our healing journey, we create boundaries. And sometimes those boundaries is for our good, our emotional health, our physical health. They're boundaries that we put in place so that way we can continue on our journey in a healthy way, right? This week, I was not only this week, let me be honest, not 2025, I have been really tested. So let me rewind. I started this podcast, Rich with Experiences, out of me laughing when I was creating my program, Healing to Create Abundance. I was going through the homework and I was doing the homework myself, understanding the losses that I've had in my past, really reflecting on my coping strategies, seeing what I need to change, all the good things that we discuss throughout all of our mini episodes here with Rich with Experiences. So I was doing that work and I just started chuckling. I was like, if I had $1 for all of these experiences, I would be rich. I have another one for you. And the reason why I'm sharing it is in hopes to really be exactly what I created this show, to be a beacon of light for somebody else who is going through what I went through. So let me explain. I started my healing journey because I went through a lot of traumatic things. And I know we overuse the word trauma so much, but when I say trauma, I mean literally traumatic experiences, traumatic lived emotional and physical experiences. And I didn't know how to process them. And I was continuously walking around just living life in my trauma response. I was literally living in my coping strategies and they were not healthy. And I didn't know how to get off the carousel. And I started to have this type of mentality where whenever I tried to get a foot in and I'm doing well and everything's going great, that other shoe would drop. And I needed to figure out how to really just live the way that I intend to live continuously and or understand how to process some things. And I didn't like the way that I was feeling. I didn't like feeling angry all the time. I didn't like feeling sad all the time. I didn't like not knowing what depression was and just having this heaviness, and I needed to change. So I actively started to look into changing, and I fell into this thing called life coaching and habits and how to change our habits and create new habits and cognitive behavioral therapy. And I never knew what any of this was. So I just started exploring it. I said, maybe I might need some of this. I enrolled in a class and I started doing amazing. Now, in my life, I don't know about your life, but I'm going to tell you, in my experience, whenever things start going well, life happens. And this was no exception. Life started happening. Started doing my certification during COVID. So my children were home. I wanted to do this course. It was my oldest son's senior year. There was so many things going on that did not look the way that I originally envisioned it. Right. I did not envision, just like a lot of you who had seniors, that our senior year was going to look like in COVID. It was something I wasn't prepared for. I wasn't prepared to be homeschooling or virtual online schooling my children for this time period. I don't like doing that. I tried in the past. It wasn't for me. I love my teachers. They do phenomenally. It's not I'm not good at teaching my own children, right? So I like most of you, 2020 or COVID was very difficult. Well, also during COVID, I went to go help a family member who was dealing with some medical issues. So, compiling all of that on me, I said, you know what? This might not be the best time for me to continue and just focusing on coaching and understanding what this is, because there's other priorities that are more important, that other shoe to drop, right? We can find every reason for something else to happen that's going to take our focus away from what we truly want to do. And that's exactly what I did. Like, all of these things were more important than me focusing on this. Underline this was something that I wanted to learn for myself to apply these cognitive behavioral things, like, oh, how do I change these habits? What does this look like? I want to change this. But then I put it on pause. And that was very difficult. But I did it. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my family member that I was helping that this isn't the best time for me. I don't know if you guys realize, but this is COVID. I got all of my kids home. My never complained. Even though it was a financial burden, I didn't complain. I showed up and I just processed it. Throughout the time that I was helping my family member, I injured myself, never once complained. I sucked it up. And I'm like, I can figure this out. So I wrapped that up. I helped my family member. I sacrificed the things that I needed to sacrifice for, and I was showed up for the things that I was able to show up for. But it definitely wasn't to the standards that I would. And I didn't create a boundary, even though, if you notice, I said that there were things I knew that I wouldn't be able to do, but I just didn't create the boundary because I felt that I just need to show up. I didn't have that courage to just vocalize what did not serve me. Hmm. Well, that wouldn't have been the first time. So every time, so I got home, so I finished that up. I came home. I said, you know what? I'm going to get back to it. So I got back into it, applying the things that I was learning. I started a new job in the coaching industry. I was coaching, facilitating large groups, small groups, getting amazing results for the people that I was coaching, and I loved it. And then, of course, here we go. Just like things in my past, way it has been, here's this cycle. I'm working really hard. I'm applying things. I'm understanding, and another shoe drops. As I'm going through my healing journey, and as you go through your healing journey, you start to understand things. You do the work. You start looking at your trauma responses, your coping strategies. You find out what serves you, what doesn't serve you. You do the meditations. You honor your feelings. I was doing all the good stuff, the things that we discuss constantly here at Rich with These Experiences. See, I was doing that, and while doing that, I started changing, just like you. As you are on this healing journey and you start looking at things that no longer serve you, applying things that do serve you, learning how to walk in your authenticity, learning how to heal the things that no longer, I was doing all of this stuff. I was starting to put, being very specific about the things that has hurt me, being courageous on taking the steps and doing what I need to do in order to start honoring the feelings that I had. And taking some accountability for the things that I also had a hand in. The healing journey is all over the place. It's an onion. So I say you got to love yourself through discovery and healing, because you're going to discover so much about you, the environment, and everything. So I am no exception to the rule. And as you're healing and you're learning, life is still coming. There are still struggles that are going on in your everyday. I was struggling in my marriage. I was struggling trying to keep things together. I felt like I couldn't help nobody, but I was continuously trying, right? Fast forward, now I am past COVID. Our kids are back in school. We're getting into a routine. Routines are great, right? With routines, things are starting to look a little bit normal. I could breathe, right? Let's go back to focusing on me. And that's what I did. And that's when Life After Loss Academy was created. That's when Healing to Create Abundance started to form. I went into this creative space and started to then went from life coaching, health coaching, to more specifically trauma healing. And as I was doing that, applying the things, applying the tools, that's when I started to really get connected to the sources, to the root of areas in my life that I needed to heal. Areas in my life that I was afraid to even admit bothered me. The things that I just was so how should I say? I was so um used to just letting it be, right? If you remember, I told you that when I grew up, my grandmother, I love my grandmother, but the sound of my voice sometimes, me laughing, it irked her spirit. By the time I'm the youngest of four. So by the time my mom had me, she was well over the idea of little people. That's my opinion. And rightfully so. I don't know. She's no longer with us. But my grandmother had a very unique belief that children were to be seen and not heard. And that belief grew stronger as she grew older. And that really conditioned me to kind of silence my voice, to keep it down in my stomach and not really share how I feel, whether good or bad. And that manifested and turned into the young adult that also had the issue. But sometimes, right here, I was told, is the thing that's going to be the source of my problems between here and here, my mouth. And a lot of people didn't like to listen to my mouth. I wasn't disrespectful, but my mouth spoke a lot of truth. And sometimes truth isn't what you want to hear, especially if that truth is coming from a source of a tiny human. It was deemed kind of disrespectful. Even though that saying, the truth or from the mouths of babes, is always referencing that children always just authentically tell the truth. But in my case, me, child, truth, authentically speaking truth was not seen or not deemed something that was appropriate. So I conditioned myself to not speak. That wasn't healthy. With conditioning myself to not speak, that meant that I started to create unhealthy habits because I needed to speak. I didn't need to silence myself, but I didn't know how to out of fear that I was going to get in trouble. So that manifested into this adult, not this adult, but as an adult. And so I was continuing those cycles, even when it came down to me articulating something that didn't work for me. Even at work, it could be something simple as being at work and someone asking me to do something. I could simply say, that doesn't work for me. I'm sorry, I can't. I was like, okay, I'll go ahead and do it. And I would do it. Even if it inconvenienced me, I would do it to the best of my ability and then move on and then go back to doing what I was doing. And that's just how I showed up. And I did that exactly with another situation with my family. So I'm building my business, I'm building my brand, everything's going great. I'm starting to speak in conventions. You know the saying sometimes, like when things are starting to go well, that other shoe drops. As I'm building my brand, that other shoe dropped. I needed to help my family member again. And I did. I didn't say that it was going to be difficult for me. I didn't honor that it was going to be difficult for me. What I did was I just showed up. I grinned, I bared it, even in pain, physical pain. I showed up. I wouldn't say that was the best thing, but that's what I did. I put someone else's needs before my own. But with doing that, what suffered? My business. I didn't put into my business. I didn't continue on the path that I was doing. I had momentum, I had fire, I had bang, and then it fizzled. Because for me, if this might relate to you, there is just that one thing in my healing journey that is the hardest for me to get past. And that's a lot of things that happened in my childhood and in my home. And that's very difficult. So every time I have to go back home, it's like I literally have to reset and start all over again. It's like that inner child that's hurt, that has all of these feelings that haven't been able to be healed. That person is now manifested in this adult body. And that was happening again. And I said, this has to be my last time. Because now what was different this time was I was doing the work. See, I got my certification as a life coach. I had my certification as a health coach. I went and I got my certification as a trauma coach. And for me, all those certifications weren't just because I want to put them in a shelf and be like, what? No, I did all of that because I was like, I need some help. So let me figure out how to do this for myself. I need to learn all these tools so I can apply it to myself. I created this program so I can first put myself through the program, apply the tools to myself. And so I was doing that. I was getting specific. I was looking at, this isn't what I'm going to be honest, my coping strategy, my unhealthy coping strategy, I found it in a bottle. That's how my parents coped. That was the first coping strategy I picked up. So I was continuing that. And then finally, I said, you know what? I'm going to put all of this to work. I'm going to create healthy habits. I'm going to create a system that works for me. And not only that, I'm going to apply the tools. I'm going to work on those areas. Then the other shoe dropped. So let me discuss this. I created a healthy boundary for myself. I hope that if you have a problem or you struggle with creating boundaries, I was the same way until I kind of changed the way that I look at a boundary. So when I create a boundary, I'm creating something because I want to first honor my emotional or physical state. So whatever that boundary is for, that's me, right? That's an essence, that's a part, that is me. Because a boundary, you're not literally putting a finger in the sand. So when you're creating a boundary, you're creating something that is in alignment with what you want. So I started to really connect to that idea. I was like, what? So I can create boundaries that's going to serve me, right? Like boundaries, like not boundaries in a negative way. I can actually make a positive boundary. And so I started doing that. I started looking at boundaries from that perspective of not a negative thing, like I'm not keeping something out negatively. No, what I'm doing is protecting me and what I need for myself. And I'm going to create this boundary so that way I can get what I need. So I did that for the first time, and it was difficult. I had a really, really hard time with creating this boundary, and it felt like it took every bit of courage for me to create this boundary. I know you probably understand where I'm coming from, but I did. And let me tell you, it was not well received. It was not well received at all. And it hurt. It hurt terribly. But what I did was I allowed myself to feel it. I took all of those tools that we have discussed here with Rich with Experiences and the many other guests that I have had. Thank you so much. I took the things that I not only learned from the courses that I went to, but the things that I learned from our guests here at Rich with Experiences, and I gave myself the space that I needed to just process, to not think about it and just whataboutisms. I got really specific. And I said, how do you feel right now? How do you feel? And I allowed myself to sit with that, to honor it, to write. I wrote it out. I wrote some poetry. I cried it out. I sung it out. I allowed myself to connect to every emotion that I needed. And I gave it a name. I honored it. I felt so powerful in the moment that, or in the idea that I was using the tools. I was seeing the result. I could feel the difference. So I got the courage to just say, you know what? I'm going to say that I'm not happy with how I'm being treated in this moment. I am going to say that I have been working so hard. I have sacrificed so much, not even complaining one bit. And this hurt me to my core. And I need you to see me. I need you to hear this. And I need to say it for myself because I need to honor this because I've been doing the work. And my boundary wasn't to be disrespectful. My boundary was because for the first time, I am saying I can't do something. And I need to give myself that grace. I need to give myself this understanding. And I need to prioritize the things that I need to prioritize right now in this moment. And I'm sorry that I used to be able to do this for you and I would drop everything. But right now, I just can't. And as hard as it is for me to say this and admit it, it's the truth. Well, to my surprise, as you were like, thank you, thank you. I was proud of myself as well. Finding my voice, saying how I felt. I was so proud for about 2.2 seconds. See, our healing journey is exactly ours. We cannot predict or take people along the journey with us, even though we hope that we can, but it just doesn't work out that way. It's not realistic. So, person that I spoke to didn't honor my feelings the way that I would have hoped. And it hurt, but it's what it is. So then I said, what am I going to do? I felt so bad. I said, wow, this shit sucks. I felt low. I said, man, the first time that I actually create a boundary, because I need it. I need it right now. I am everything but the child of God. Is this healing journey really what it's all made up for? And then I gave myself a moment. So, what exactly did you do here? Outside the pain, outside of what you would have hoped someone would have done for you. Let's get into the meat and potatoes here. And then I just had this warmth just come over my whole entire body because I just realized in that moment I created a boundary for me that even though my feelings were not heard, received, reciprocated, they didn't do what I would have liked them to do or handled it the way that I would have liked them to do, I still honored my feelings. And then I started to celebrate that. So look, that was hard. That hurt my feelings. Then I said, you did that. You did that. And I want to tell you, you did that. Because I know that this is not just me. I know that I am not the only person that has experience like this, where you create a boundary and you just try to enforce the boundary. And those whom are not on your healing journey are like, I don't like this. I don't like this boundary. I don't like this new version of you. I don't like this healed version of you. I don't like this person who is trying to find healthy habits. That's fine. I want to celebrate you because you created something just like I did that honors your journey, that honored the fact that you had to do something that was difficult. And not only was it difficult, you had to put yourself in a position to be courageous, to be curious, to go through everything that you went through just to figure out what it is that you needed in that moment, whether it be just a small boundary or a large boundary. You figured out what you needed in that moment so you can continue on in a healthy way. And that is to be celebrated. And so I celebrated it. I was sad until I realized what I accomplished. And I want you to realize what you accomplished. When you create boundaries and when you hold firm to them, even when you piss off other people, celebrate it. And I tell you what I did. Oh man, when I finally realized that that's exactly what I did in that moment, I went into the bathroom and I looked myself in the mirror and I started talking to my inner child. I said, I did this for you. We're in this together. Remember what I said when we were talking about um, our beliefs? That our beliefs come from the foundation of our lived experiences from the age of 0 to 6. So, as adults, our perception of the world, our ideas, and our thoughts generate from the lived experiences that you went through from 0 to 6. And that's why it was important for me in that moment to go back to my inner child and love on her. Because, see, that inner child was the one that was courageous because it was my voice from deep within that was always suppressed. See, that voice came out that night. That voice was resonated from my spirit. And I wanted to give that inner child that moment to heal. So I really hope that this story, this experience, what I went through, really does shed and becomes a beacon of light for you if to just honor your boundaries. I was trying to think of how I want to say it, but just honor your boundaries, even when it's not received from other people, even when other people say the meanest things. And let me tell you, it hurts, especially when you are doing something and you're working so hard on making your life better, not only better, but really aligning with what you want in your life. And that's one of the beautiful things about our healing journey and realizing when I talk about our pillars here at Life After Loss Academy, understanding how to change the habits and coping strategies that no longer serve you and create healthy habits and going inward and healing our nervous system so we're not constantly showing up in our trauma response, that we are being able to heal and give ourselves the ability to just process more and handle more and from our from the mindset that we want to, right? But most importantly, understanding what we lost in our life, what we are grieving, and what we need to replace. All three of those things, I really had to root to anchor in these last 2 months. I had to remind myself of my why, but most importantly, I had to celebrate those steps, celebrate the boundaries, celebrate the fact that even in the midst of what looked like a storm, it wasn't a storm. It was the revelation that I'm doing the work. You're doing the work. You're honoring your journey. And that needs to be celebrated. And if other people, regardless of the relationship, meaning parent, spouse, siblings, children, if you get in a position where you feel like myself that it was them or me, and I felt, honestly, maybe I should choose them, then I remembered why I created the boundary. I honored it. And it brought me so much happiness, even after the storm. So celebrate you, even if you're doing it alone, because trust me, I celebrated by myself. Sometimes the healing journey is a solo dolo one, and it's okay as long as you honor your feelings. You honor what you need. I want to thank you for being with me today at Rich with Experiences. I said it earlier. I have a saying that's love yourself through discovery and healing. And it really has been something that I started saying to myself as a mantra. Because just like this past week, this healing journey is no joke. It's difficult at times, but love yourself. Self love, self care, self right here. Because you cannot pour into cups if you have nothing to pour. I love you. And thank you for being with us here at Win Win Women TV and with me at Rich with Experiences.